So, hello everyone, and welcome to today's session. We're going to be looking at writing conclusions today for IELTS Writing Task 2 essays. What we might also call them the summary statements. And we're going to be looking over what we need to include and also, very importantly, what we do not need to include in conclusions. The most important thing is to actually understand the purpose of a conclusion. The whole reason we write a conclusion is to summarize our ideas. And if the question is asked for our opinion, it has to be repeated in the conclusion. We are not adding new information. So we don't want to put future predictions, future solutions. We're not adding any new information. We're not paraphrasing the question statement again. We're only summarizing our main ideas. We don't have to summarize our explanations. And this is maybe something different to what people have told you in the past. So you might have had English teachers, and the problem with most English teachers who teach IELTS, and I know it's happened to me, they're working for a school and they get told, okay, go teach IELTS. This person's never taught IELTS before in their life, but they do know how to write essays. So they go, oh, well, normally in an essay, I would paraphrase a question statement again in my conclusion. I would add these future predictions. I do this. And sure, if you're at a university, you might need to do these things, but this is IELTS. For IELTS, how long are your essays meant to be? So the question says, how many words? Yeah, so it's a minimum of 250. Okay, so most of your marks, especially for task response, do you think you get many marks for task response for your introduction and conclusion? Lots of people are saying yes. No, you don't get a lot of marks for your task response in your introduction and conclusion. As Maitreya says, you get your marks for task response in your main body paragraphs. Why are you getting most of your marks for task response in your main body paragraphs? What does task response focus on generally? Aha, Tamara, excellent. Yeah, how well you develop your ideas. You're not developing your ideas at all in your introduction, your conclusion. However, obviously, introductions and conclusions are important. And as Gabby says, yeah, it's basically coherence, cohesion. So your introduction and your conclusion are working on, they're like glue. There's a lesson by my IELTS classroom, and she compares an essay to like a sandwich, and she's saying you've got your conclusion and your introduction are like the bread, but you don't buy a sandwich to eat bread. You buy a sandwich for the filling. If you don't have the bread, the whole sandwich falls apart. So you need the bread, but the important part is the filling. It's the part that's inside. It's your body paragraphs. So this goes back to what I was saying. It's a 250-word essay. We're only doing what we need to do. And that's why we don't have all these fancy things in the introduction. And our conclusion is just, we restate opinions if we were asked our opinion. Some essays aren't, but if you're asked your opinion, you have to restate it. And you need to summarize your ideas, all of them. It's basically a paraphrase of your outline statement. So the part in your introduction, some people call it a thesis statement, where you introduced your ideas, you're just really summarizing that, you're restating that. For discussion essays, today we're not looking at a discussion essay, but if you are writing discussion essays for conclusions, don't forget to summarize the main ideas for both views. Don't just do it for one. So I see a lot of people do that. They'll restate their opinion, and then they give the view that they agree with, and they don't talk about the the view they disagree with. That if you are writing a discussion essay, remember both views, that basically the ideas from both paragraphs need to be summarized and your opinion needs to be summarized. So today we have this question. What type of question is this? If the world should have only one government rather than a national government for each country, do the advantages of this outweigh the disadvantages? So yeah, this is an advantage, disadvantage, but type 2. So we've got two types. One type is what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages? And this one says, do they outweigh? So are there more of one than the other? Why is this something? Why is it important we know the difference between type 1 and type 2 in the conclusion? What do type 2 essay, type 2 advantage, disadvantage questions that have, yeah, that type 1 don't? Opinion. This question is an opinion essay. It's mixed with advantages and disadvantages, but it's an opinion essay because it's asking you which one is stronger. So if it asks your opinion, what needs to be in your conclusion? Exactly, Tamara. Yeah, your opinion. We must have your opinion in this type of essay. So today we are going to have some kind of opinion. And our opinion is going to be saying what? We're not going to be subtle about it. We are going to say, either the advantages outweigh the disadvantages or the disadvantages outweigh the advantages. We can use this language. Yes, you can use the word outnumber. It's fine. You're not getting extra marks by saying outnumber instead of outweigh. So we want to very, very clearly in our conclusion say the disadvantages or the advantages, we'll have a look at which one we're choosing later, outweigh the other one because, and then we're going to give summarize our main ideas. For this type of essay, advantages outweigh the disadvantages, how many advantages do we write and how many disadvantages in the main body paragraph? One for each. So yeah, we only need to talk about one for each, but we need to give our opinion. So that means we have got one advantage we're going to summarize, one disadvantage we're going to summarize, and we are going to mention one outweighs the other, so our opinion. So there's three things we need to summarize. We've been looking at this question the last couple of weeks, so we've come up with some ideas for it. So we know how we go, what we're talking about. We've decided that the disadvantages are strong. So if the disadvantages are strong, how do I mention about the advantages and outweighing disadvantages, or the other way around? What would be the sentence we can start with? Maitreya, yeah, that's what I was looking for. The disadvantages outweigh the advantages. So let's get this. And Mary said we could also do this. This is very true. If you are determined to paraphrase everything. So the disadvantages outweigh the advantages, or the negatives outweigh the positives. What structure can we have after that? We're giving a reason, so what word are we going to have? Yeah. Mary said as, yet you could also do that because of as. Okay, so I'm going to give you two structures that we could do. So we can have this, the disadvantages outweigh the advantages because or as. What kind of sentence does although create? Contrast. So if I have one clause that starts with although, and the next clause is going to be an independent clause, so although starts at what we call a dependent clause. So if I have a dependent clause and an independent clause, what have I created? And is that a good thing? So dependent clause plus independent clause is also called a what? Not contrast. I mean, it does create contrast, but Mary, thank you. Yeah, it creates a complex sentence. Why is it important to use complex sentences in your writing? It gives you a range of grammar, helps you reach a band 7 or a band 8 or a band 9. Literally to get bands 7, 8, and 9 in the marking system, it says students are able to accurately use complex sentences. So by remembering this, we know you are using complex sentences. This is what you need to get the band 7s, 8s, and 9s. And if you actually know a structure that you can use every single time in this type of essay, wonderful. It's just like, okay, I know I'm inserting complex grammar into my writing. So although we have dependent clause, comma, dependent clause. It's going to be exactly the same. Okay, so these are the two structures we can have a look at. So using this, which one is going to go into the dependent and which is going to go into the independent? Is the weak the dependent or is the strong the dependent? My first answer was strong, then I got weak. One of them is correct. Yeah, weak is the dependent. So we put our weak idea, the idea here. So let's have a look. This is the one we decided was weak. This is the idea that we decided was strong. Okay. And remember, we need clauses, so we're not going to be doing this with noun phrases. Tomorrow, yes, we're in the conclusion. So we are looking at how to write the conclusion. So these are the ideas that we came up with so far. And this is how we're going to write our conclusion. And the whole point of the conclusion is to restate our opinion and summarize our main ideas. The second we write this, the disadvantages that outweigh the advantages or the negatives outweigh the positives, we have very, very clearly stated our opinion. So you tick. Yeah, these are the things that examiners are looking for. You know, they're like, is the opinion very clear? Tick. What is the uses of as? Yeah, because or as are synonyms. So you can use because or as. So this or this, up to you. So for example, could have that, or could have that. Okay, both are fine. So I'm going to throw it over to our students who are here. So this is idea 1, this is idea 2. Remember, following the structure, we have to be writing in clauses. We cannot write in noun phrases. Clause means we need a subject and a verb, okay, at least. So we're going to have a look at these sentences that my students come up with. And then I'll have also, once we've done that, we'll have a look at a slightly different way of writing these if you want a different structure. Okay. Gabby has got one. Get rid of all of this. I'll paraphrase him. Okay. All conclusions. I'm going to start with in conclusion or to conclude. What does your examiner think when he reads this? Does your examiner look at that and go, wow, such fancy language? Yeah, exactly, Reben. Tamara. The examiner thinks you're trying to impress them. Do you think they're impressed? Absolutely not. My hand goes to my face and I'm like, oh, stop trying to use overly. They don't get offended. But it's just not clear, right? Like, it's just not how a native person would write. They just see, okay, this person is trying to show off. It's not getting you more marks. Be sensible. If over and over again your teachers have told you to use expressions like in conclusion, use in conclusion. So keep it simple, keep it clear. It's not wrong. You're not going to lose marks for it. But I'm just telling you my personal experience, and I know most people, most examiners, when they see this kind of language, they're just like, oh, stop trying to show off. It doesn't get you more marks, no matter what various Facebook groups might tell you. Okay, so in conclusion, although unifying governments around the world will reduce immigration issues. Okay. So you've gone for my second structure, whoever this was, Gabby, and this is absolutely fine. I'm just going to change this around, Gabby, a little bit so we can use the first structure. What you've done is fine. I just want to show the first structure. So from what I'm saying, in conclusion, I believe that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages outweigh the advantages because although unifying governments around the world will reduce immigration issues, comma. So here, subject, verb, object. So we have a clause. This is a dependent clause followed by the independent clause. It would be very difficult for one government to run the system. So this is structure one. This, I believe, that is optional. Okay, so you can put it in, or you can just start with this. So Gabby, the way you wrote was absolutely fine. Don't take this as me saying it's wrong. I just wanted to show that structure after. So this is structure one. Perfect. If I saw that, I'd just be like that as an absolutely perfect band 9 conclusion. No issues. Excellent. Absolutely excellent. Anyone else can give me a conclusion? Try and use this structure that we used to start with. Just a note on capital letters. I see a lot of students make this mistake. So after, for some reason, with this particular expression, they go in conclusion. And they put capital letters here. Remember, after a comma, unless it's a proper noun, lowercase. Okay, so again. Disadvantages of unifying governments outweigh the advantages because although they may reduce immigration issues, They will make implementing rules impossible for one system. So here, this is exactly what happens if you're not following this structure I showed you, that it gets confusing because you're starting to throw in noun phrases. The disadvantages of unified government outweigh the advantages, because although this may reduce immigration issues, maybe it does work. Sorry, if I read it again. Immigration will make implementing rules. So this expression, maybe let's just simplify it. The language in there wasn't very clear. This would work. But again, what I'd like you to do, Revan, and this structure, what you're using is possible. I'm just trying to use this structure that I showed you. The disadvantages outweigh the advantages because although dependent clause, independent clause. Okay. So have a try with that structure. And then we'll have a look at the other structures after. So in conclusion, I think the drawbacks outweigh the benefits because, although, okay, so here we see we're doing exactly what this structure I was saying. So you know this works. In conclusion, I think the drawbacks outweigh the benefits. Very, very clear, the structure. Dependent clause. One world government may reduce immigration problems. Subject, verb, object. Okay, so we've got definitely a very clear dependent clause. Now we need an independent clause. It would be problematic for one world government to run the system. Excellent. We have got an independent clause. This is all correct. This is slightly awkward. What do we need here? So it's a one. This is why this is confusing. Is the one talking about the government, or is the one referring to the world? Very good. So we hyphen. Why have we hyphened? REA, even better. Yeah, we've got a compound modifier, a compound adjective. Therefore, the one is not actually referring to the government. The one is referring to the world. So we need an article because governments are countable. So here it would be problematic for a one world government. This is a modifier to run the system. So usually you would not have an article with a numerical modifier. But in this particular instance, because the numerical modifier is modifying something in this compound adjective, we have this article. So it's a pretty rare system. Here you see, this is fine. It would be difficult for one government. This one in this noun phrase is referring specifically to the government. So I couldn't put a one government. This would make absolutely no grammatical sense because the one modifies government. Here, the one modifies world. It doesn't modify the main noun, and therefore we need the article. Okay. Apart from that, good job. Well done. We've got one from Mary. All right, Mary, as I say, I'm looking for this structure. So I need you to follow instructions. Can you say one government? Nope, Rio, so you wouldn't write, Rio was saying. Because this is government. I can't type. Okay. I can't type this because the one is not modifying. This is not a compound adjective. So you hyphenate compound modifiers. So let's say if I have a two-part is referring to lesson. Yep. So a two-part lesson. The isn't modifying two-part. The is referring to lesson. The two-part is referring to lesson. Mary, I'm going to get you to follow the structure I've asked you. The structure we're looking at is the disadvantages outweigh the advantages because although dependent clause, independent clause. I know there are other ways of doing this, but I want to make sure that you can do it this way. It's okay, Mary. So in conclusion, the disadvantages outweigh the advantages because although, okay, so this is our structure. This is exactly how we want to start it. Then we're going to go dependent clause, independent clause. United government around the globe. So here, government is countable. A united government around the globe would ease the process of immigration. It would be easy for national government for a single nation to run their system. But I think we mean it would not. If we go back to our main ideas, having a single government is it would not be simpler. So where are I? It would not be easy for a national government, or actually we could say national governments because you're talking about them in general. Single nation, again, countable. And anyone who was in my lesson that we've just had, what preposition will we use here? If we're trying to show, it's going to be a prepositional phrase to give extra information about place. I want to say for. Oh, be not more natural here. It would not be easy for national governments of single nation to run their system. And we're kind of talking about national governments in general. So if it's going to be plural, I guess we should be consistent. Let's check. It would not be easy for national governments of single nations to run their system. Does this make sense? Although a united government around the globe would ease the process, it would not be easy for national governments. Oh, so I see where we got confused. So it's not the national governments that are going to have a problem. So what was the disadvantage? We're not talking about the national government struggling. We're talking about the big world government, yeah. So although a united government around the world would ease the process of immigration, so this is the advantage. It would not be easy for one world to run we've got confused on our ideas because our idea was trying to talk about it's difficult for one government, not for all of them. Okay, so it's just got a little bit confusing. But the thing that I do like is you are following the structure. If you follow the structure, the grammar is good. It's just the idea was confused. So now we've got the set structure. We've got a dependent clause. We have an independent clause. Excellent. Well done. Okay, we've had a few more. Okay, who can continue? Oh, Marisol. Okay. In conclusion, I believe that the disadvantages outweigh the advantages. Good. Because although, okay, so far, see, all we're doing here, we can just copy this, we can memorize this. This is going to be correct for all of your essays. A unify, here we say not unify government, but Reverend good, yeah, unify. It's the correct adjective. A unified government could reduce the immigration issues. Here we're just talking about issues in general, so we could say reduce immigration issues. So when talking in general, plural noun, no article. So although a unified government could reduce immigration issues, it would be difficult to implement such a system. Excellent. So we've got this introductory section. We've got our dependent clause. It would be difficult to implement such a system. And we have our independent clause. So excellent. Absolutely fine what's been written here. So Revan, you could say implement rules, but implement such a system. This is actually a very, very natural expression talking about implementing a system. So this is a very natural collocation. Okay. So yeah, really nice. Great conclusion. Yay. Okay. Great. So in conclusion, drawbacks outweigh the benefits because although, okay. Good job, Mary. Unified states can help immigration process less complex for a lot of individuals. The unified states can help immigration process what less complex? We're missing a verb here. You need a verb, Mary, is what's missing here. Yep, tomorrow that works. Become or be. The unified states can help immigration processes become less complex for a lot of individuals. Authorities would find very complicated for a single government across the globe. Find very complicated to introduce a law. Here our word order is a little bit confusing. So authorities would find, when you have this would find, what comes after this expression? Does anyone know? Would find? It, yeah. So you hear this like would find it hard, would find it complicated, would find it easy. So we want this it. Authorities would find it very complicated for single government is countable. So authorities would find it very complicated for a single government across the globe to introduce a law. We'll be talking here about laws in general. So how do we talk about laws? Yep. When we're talking in general, remember we want this plural noun, zero article. Or its laws would also work, Revan. Yeah. Let's try one more time. Unified states can help immigration processes. So were we talking about unified states or just one thing here? One. So here, better, a unified government can help immigration process become less complex for a lot of individuals. Okay. So we've got our clause, and it's dependent. Authorities would find it very complicated for a single government across the globe to introduce laws. Good. Another independent clause. Highlight this. This one. Okay. Who else has got a conclusion for me and we can have a look at? Okay. Your structure is, yeah, going to be very simple. And do you remember what I said? Your conclusion is basically what? A paraphrase of not the whole introduction. What part of the introduction? Yeah, your outline statement, exactly. And that's why we're going to have a look. In a second, we're going to have a look at a slightly different structure. So you can use one of these structures in your outline statement, and you're going to use the other structure in your conclusion. So it's up to you, and that's going to mean that you're varying your language a bit. Okay, so we'll have a look at this one, and then we'll use the other structure for our next idea. So in conclusion, I believe that the drawbacks outweigh the benefits because, although excellent, so we have got our set structure here. Although the possibility of having a one-world government could bring various benefits to alleviate immigration problems. So here we can be a little bit more specific here, because we said the main idea was alleviating immigration problems. So we don't need to talk about the various benefits, just simply the possibility of having a one-world government. And is it the possibility that reduces the problems? Or is it that having the one-world government? It's actually the having that reduces the problems. It's not the possibility. So again, we can just be more concise. Because having a one-world government could alleviate immigration problems. Okay, nice and simple. Subject, verb, object. Okay, good. We have got our dependent clause. Implementation of the system will not be simple. So we're talking about the specific implementation of this system. So if we talk about something more specific, what needs to come before it? I'm thinking about an article. We're talking about specific implementation of the system. We're only referring to implementing this system. So we would say the implementation of the system. Also, this should be ringing alarm bells for articles. We have X of Y. In English, when you have this expression, X of Y, it almost always has an article in front of it. It could be definite or it might be indefinite, but almost always this expression, X of Y, tends to have an article. Here we're talking about the specific implementation, so we use a definite article. So the implementation of the system will not be simple, as it requires numerous efforts to formulate it in all countries. Good. What are we doing here? What have we summarized in this part here? Is it the main idea that I summarized? It's not so much an added idea because it's already in the essay. But what part of a body paragraph? Excellent. Yeah, the explanation. So what's ended up here, if you get these because or as, you don't need this in your conclusion. Because you don't need to summarize your explanations. You only need to summarize your main ideas. So it's not wrong, but you don't have a lot of time in your writing section. So if you don't need to do something, we're not doing it. Okay, so we're just summarizing the idea. The idea is the implementation of the system will not be simple. There's no need in your conclusions with because or as and giving an extra explanation. You've already done your explanation. The explanation was in your body paragraphs. Okay, so keeping it simple, keeping it concise. Okay, no need for this extra information. And then I've got this. Structure is nice. But again, at any time you're writing something you don't have to write, it is possible you can make mistakes. So we don't want to be writing extra information where we can make mistakes. Mary says, yeah, so only the idea without the reason for it. Exactly. So we're just summarizing main ideas, as I mentioned before. Okay, so this is one way of doing this. Was there anyone else who wanted me to look at their conclusion with this structure? Because I'm about to jump to another structure. I know we've got Denise here. Denise, did you want me to have a look at a conclusion for you? I know it's your first session, don't be shy. Speak now or forever hold. Oh, you sent it, okay. Denise, let me look through. Where are we? Denise, Mary. So, found it, excellent. All right, lots of comments. I'll get there. Yes, in conclusion, I believe that the disadvantages outweigh the advantages because although excellent, okay, so we have this first structure. Although this may decrease immigration challenges, good. Our dependent clause. What colors are we using? It will make implementing rules impossible for one system government. Again, so this here is a compound adjective. So the one system government, these two words are both modifying this. So we would have this hyphenated, and then we're missing an article, so we need this for a one system government. So now this is grammatically correct. I would say just on a note about vocabulary, a one world government rather than one system is much more natural collocation. Sure, it's been mentioned already. Is it going to stop me, any of my older students, if I repeat some vocabulary? Does it stop me getting a band 7? If we use it accurately? No, we can repeat vocabulary. People are obsessed with trying to find synonyms, and it gets them in so much trouble because in this instance, one world government, this is the natural collocation. If we make it a one system government, it's an unnatural collocation. Sure, you varied your vocabulary, but it's no longer that natural. So it's much better to repeat something in the correct collocation than it is to force synonyms. Okay, you're going to lose a lot more marks for forcing synonyms than you are for repeating. And as I said, it's definitely not going to stop you getting a bad 7. If you don't repeat it that much, your vocabulary that much, it shouldn't stop you getting a bad 8 for your vocabulary. If you use it accurately, and this is the absolute key, you're marked on accuracy much more than anything else. Okay, but apart from that, good structure. We've got a complex sentence. This would be a really good conclusion, and so it's well written, but just be careful of forcing synonyms. Okay, so let's have a look at the next structure. Is there anyone I've not covered before I jump onto the next one? I'm not counting conclusions, so if I haven't used yours, just speak now. Okay, let's go. Excellent. So the next thing, so this is one way we said, I believe the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. So let's use this example here, or this conclusion here, for a slightly different structure. So in conclusion, although you've got dependent clause, which is our weak side, let's do the leave, I guess. Okay, this is our other way of doing it. So if you use this kind of structure, maybe in your outline statement in the introduction, okay, I'm going to change the way I write it. So in conclusion, although we're still using this although, because we're going to use this, and again, it creates complex sentences, and we're varying our complex sentences, so this is great. Our opinion is in there. We want this. And it's really simple. You're basically just changing where although goes. You're changing although from coming here to putting although here. Yeah, so it's really simple. So although our dependent clause there, although this may decrease immigration problems, I believe that the disadvantages outweigh the advantages because it will make implementing rules impossible for one world government. So, okay, so that's Mary's over here. This is Mary's original one. So in conclusion, although unified states would mitigate immigration processes, so remember we said before, a unified state could mitigate immigration processes for a lot of individuals. I believe that the drawbacks outweigh the benefits because when single governments across the globe introduce laws, authorities would find it very complicated. Sure. Okay, so this works. We are following the structure. In conclusion, although what do we say about this expression? Tomorrow? Yeah, hyphenated with, what else is missing? Yeah, we need to have the article, because the government here is countable. So although one world government may reduce immigration problems, I think the drawbacks outweigh the benefits, because it would be problematic for a one world government to run the system. So here you put it right. Good, excellent. And again, very, very, very clear. Super simple to read. It's easy. Also remember, like, I know I go on and on about this, like, make your writing clear and simple. Your examiner is not just marking your essay. Your examiner is marking hundreds of essays. Some of them may not be very good. When an examiner or a teacher has to mark a lot of essays, and a lot of them are not very good, their head starts to get a bit foggy. It's just very simple. You don't know at what point in your examiner's marking your essay gets marked. If your essay gets marked as the first essay that they do in the day, probably like whatever you guys do at work, the first thing they do in the day, it's probably going to be pretty good. You know, they're pretty clear-headed. When it gets to the end of the day and you're like your essay number 50, if your writing is not clear and simple, they start going, and it gets really confusing. And that's why if you can write in a very clear, simple way, your examiner is going to love you. I cannot express this enough. Like, the break in their day of reading a clear, simple essay, they'll be like, oh, thank you. That is the feeling you want to generate when your examiner marks your tasks, your essays, is like, thank you for giving me a break. This kind of writing does that, okay? This is why clarity is so, so important, and why using all this fancy, I'm trying to show off vocabulary, has the absolute opposite effect on your examiner at the end of the day. So in conclusion, although a unified government could tackle immigration issues, I believe that disadvantages outweigh the advantages because a one world government may find it very hard to implement rules. Brilliant, clear, simple. Yeah. This is what I expect to read from a band 9 essay. This is exactly what you should be, what a conclusion should look like. Clear, simple, very easy to read. In conclusion, although having a one world government could alleviate immigration problems, brilliant, I believe the drawbacks outnumber the benefits because the implementation of the system will not be simple. Beautiful, Ria. Absolutely beautiful. Clear, concise, good conclusion. You know, happy examiner. Mary says, yeah, it's great to have the flexibility of writing these two kinds. Yeah, so you can have one or the other. And you know, you can use one set structure in your outline statement, because your outline statement is basically the same. So you can have one in your outline statement and you use one in your conclusion. Whichever one you want to do, doesn't matter. Use one in one in the other. You varied your language. You're showing a variation of different use of complex sentences, which is something you get marked for. So you tick all of the boxes. Have I missed anyone? Sorry, I know I'm quite often talking and people paste their examples. If anyone else wants to paste one for this structure, please go ahead. Marisol, excellent. In conclusion, although a unified government could reduce immigration issues, I believe the advantages outweigh the, be careful here. The advantages outweigh the advantages. disadvantages outweigh the advantages, because it would be difficult to implement such a system. Yeah, really good. Something I would really recommend doing with proofreading. So a lot of people go, oh, I don't have the time to proofread. Personally, I would proofread. When I say proofread, I mean going back through your work after each paragraph. So rather than after the whole essay, sure, we want to have a bit of time at the end, but it's a lot easier to proofread paragraph by paragraph. If you're proofreading a whole essay, that's a lot of text. But if you're only focusing on one paragraph, for example, like here, it's a lot easier to go through here and pick out little mistakes. So just a tip when proofreading, save yourself 30 seconds after each paragraph, a minute after each paragraph. Just be like, okay, write it, check it. And really, properly read it. And then you'll avoid these kind of issues. Because this kind of mistake could make your examiner go, well, now your opinion isn't very clear. If it's obviously a typo, but the second your opinion isn't clear, that's going to start affecting your coherence cohesion, and it's going to start affecting your task response. So like these little checks are really, really useful and really important. Okay, does anyone else have any paragraphs that you want me to look at? If not, I'm going to call that a day, as we have just about hit an hour exactly. Look at that. I can finish a class actually on time. Okay, so for anyone who's watching this at home has any questions, please leave them in the comments or come join our Facebook group. Thank you very much to everyone who joined in today. I thought you had some really good conclusions. Remember those structures. If we've got advantages outweigh the disadvantages, types of questions, you've got two structures there. You know they're accurate. You don't need to mess around with any more structures. That's all you need. Use those structures. Use the structures you know work. Okay? Don't take risks. No need to show off. Keep it nice and simple. And then okay, you can be super confident in writing your conclusions. And the thing is, once you know these structures, your conclusion becomes very quick. It's super quick to write that because, well, I know the structure. So you're following a structure. When you're following structures, it's fast. That improves the speed of your writing and makes your life a lot easier in your task too. So thank you so much to everyone who came along. Good luck to you all in your studies. Please hit the like button and subscribe button if possible. And I will catch you all in our next lesson.